What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name's Kyle. We're going to be continuing our series here. We're just reviewing the 2024 season division by division. I'm halfway through. You guys can check out those videos on the fantasyfellowship.com or on the YouTube page here. We're going to be covering the AFC North today. So really fun division for three teams at least. We'll see if the Browns can figure some things out, but we're gonna basically just talk about each team and what they did well last year, what didn't go well, and potentially what they might be looking to do to make their team better in 2025. So I'm gonna pick up the pace. I've been trying to make these like 25 to 30 minutes long, but I think I need to pick up the pace a little bit. So we're gonna hop into the old screen share here and start with the Baltimore Ravens. And if you guys haven't seen my other videos, this is what we're looking at. This is my big database sheet, and I've been logging data since 2017. I've been making projections since 2017 as well, and this database helps me make my projections, and I start the projections after the NFL draft. That's when I really get dialed in with my numbers and things. The green line here is the 2024 season, so the Ravens go 12-5. Let's talk about what. And usually when I have continuity, like we have Harbaugh, we have Monken, I like to compare the last two seasons, and numbers look pretty much similar in terms of passing attempts: 477, 494, a little bit better completion percentage. We get an uptick in yards, almost a full yard per attempt more. So for them to throw the ball, a little bit less and to get more yards, it's a really good sign. Better efficiency in 2024, and then the touchdowns just smash up to 41. Lamar was fantastic, up from 27 a year ago. 4 interceptions. So for that touchdowns to go up and interceptions to come down, that's what you want to see. The rushing totals increased here. We had a few more rushing attempts. Yards per carry skyrocketed. Rushing yards skyrocketed here. Touchdowns did not skyrocket. A lot of those did fall into the passing touchdown column, which is fine. And then fumbles there, whatever. So basically, like, we're looking at the greatest Ravens season that we've seen in the last handful of years. 7,378 yards. That's a lot of yards. That's more yards than any Lamar season. And I do think he was kind of robbed of the MVP in 2024. I don't think he deserved the MVP in 2023. That should have been Christian McCaffrey, but we'll digress there. Either way, the Ravens, one of the best offensive seasons that they've had under Lamar Jackson. And what can we expect? I guess let's talk about 2024 first. Lamar, career high numbers here: 4,172 yards, 41 touchdowns, 915 yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. If we just look at his fantasy numbers per game, I don't know if this might have been his best season. If you drafted Lamar Jackson, you probably won a fantasy championship this year. But let's take a look here. He was QB1 on the year by a good margin. 25.2 fantasy points per game. That's with a 4-point passing touchdown. And not quite his MVP 2019 season, where he ran for 1,200 yards and threw for a lot, but you can tell a lot of progress in the passing department. So love to see this. If he can continue to stay at 66, 67% completion percentage and have a huge touchdown to interception ratio, we know he's going to run the ball, but it's this passing game that's kind of unlocking some of this upside from Lamar here. So 19 to 20 points is his floor. Second best season of his career for fantasy numbers. So Lamar Jackson, you're beautiful. I'm wondering, is he I think he's the QB1 off the boards right now. Let's take a look. And I'm just pulling up Underdog Fantasy here real quick. If you guys go here, we can just type in Baltimore. And Lamar is QB2 off the board. So there you have it. Josh Allen, QB1. So we love Lamar. Derrick Henry comes out, blasts for 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns. Still not involved as a receiving weapon, but for Henry at this age to continue to hitting the volume and the rushing yards, he's been fantastic. I do worry about him. We've been worrying about him for years. Will he fall off the cliff in 2025? We don't know yet. Usually the cliff is pretty steep for these guys, but I think for now you're still interested in Henry. He's got an ADP of 13th overall, RB5. Feels a little bit rich to me because, again, this just feels, I don't know. I love the Ravens. I like Derrick Henry. I just get nervous about age and durability. And Derrick Henry was RB3 last year. So you're getting him at a little bit of a discount. I just don't know if we can expect 1,900 yards again, but he was fantastic. Justice Hill was fantastic in a receiving role. So they did extend him at some point in the season. He's going to be back as the RB2. As the receiving back here, I still want them to develop a running back as a rusher. Maybe that's more Keaton Mitchell in 2024 or in 2025. But the table is set for 2025. We know it's Henry, Justice, and probably a little bit more Keaton Mitchell in 2025. At receiver, top two dogs were Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. Huge season for Zay Flowers, 74 catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. Still not a big touchdown guy, but he is a big play guy. He does tend to get lost in a couple games every now and then he tends to have 8-9 catches in one game and just blow up. So he's kind of like Devonta Smith, I think, on the Eagles offense, where you want him on your team, but just know that, there's going to be some games where he disappoints you just because the ball's not going his way. We did see a step up from Rashad Bateman, who led the receivers with 9 touchdowns, 45 catches, 756 yards. Bateman's entrenched as the wide receiver 2, and I do think we need to figure out who the wide receiver 3 is in 2025. So Ravens have been kind of swinging and missing in the draft outside of Flowers and Bateman. They've tried Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker, a couple other guys in the past. I do think we need to maybe consider drafting or signing a guy here that could compete as wide receiver 3. So Aguilar, Wallace, Walker, Miller, these are just kind of utility, wide receiver 4s and 5s. I want to upgrade at wide receiver 3. And then the tight ends, man, these guys continue to be the true wide receiver 3 and 4 of this team. Mark Andrews started off slow, took a little bit for him to get his feet back underneath him, but he finished strong. 11 touchdowns to lead the team, 55 catches on 69 targets. Really nice percentage there. 673 yards. And I just wonder, man, if Mark Andrews was healthy all year, these numbers could have been a lot better. So I'm in on Mark Andrews in 2025. I do worry, though, is his contract up with them? Mark Andrews contract. So I thought they have an out with him. He's got one more year in his deal, so we'll see what happens with him. But I still like Mark Andrews entering 2025. And then honestly, Isaiah Likely, man, he's kind of their number 3, number 4 receiver. 42 catches, 477 yards, 6 touchdowns. If anything happens to Mark Andrews or they don't extend him, Isaiah Likely looks like he could be a smash in this offense as a weapon. So fantastic numbers from Mark, from Likely, from Flowers, from Bateman and Henry. Again, I do want them to add another receiver. But the 2024 review, man, this was one of the best offenses in football. And if you had any of these guys, you're probably pretty happy with what you got. So Ravens, for them to continue, you got Harbaugh and Monken coming back. I expect this team to continue to play very, very well. I do worry about Henry maybe losing a little bit of his upside, but Lamar showed that he can carry the workload, and I'd have no problem drafting the Ravens that we just talked about. So we love Baltimore. Let's move on to Cincinnati. And man, Cincinnati's got a lot of tough decisions coming up here. Obviously, they got to get the deal done with Jamar Chase. And then T. Higgins, man, 2 franchise wide receivers here. It's going to be hard to pay those guys, but looking at their contracts and their situations and the rest of the Bengals payroll, it does look like they're able to keep those guys. And the rumor mill that I've been seeing is that they expect Higgins to return to Cincinnati, but I do think he's going to explore the market and see what he can get paid and see if the Bengals are willing to come close, if not match it. So 2024 review here. The Bengals throw the ball a little, and they throw the ball just as much as anybody. They threw the ball more this year than they did last year, a higher completion percentage by over 2 points, which is great. 4,900 yards, 7.54 yards per completion, 43 passing touchdowns. So we're seeing a huge spike in receiver and passing stats here. Only 9 interceptions for Burrow. Easily Burrow's best season as a pro. 43 touchdowns, 4,900 yards. No other player threw the ball for them. So Burrow's health was a huge factor in this. And just, having a healthy Higgins and Jamar Chase and some of the other players that they had, huge dividends staying healthy here as Joe Burrow turns in one of his best fantasy seasons of his career. And we know he's not a big rusher, but he did uptick back to his usual rushing workload, where the years before he was coming off of the calf and other injuries. This year he showed he can move around, avoid sacks, and get touchdowns. So Burrow probably QB4 off the board. QB5 off the board right now. So I like that. If you can start your draft with a Chase or Higgins, you're going to like potentially getting Burrow here. And again, we don't know if Higgins is going to play with this team, but I do think that there's a good chance that he does return. Let's talk about the running backs here. They entered the season with Zach Moss as the guy, and Moss kind of gets hurt, and that leads to Chase Brown just taking over. And Chase Brown, man, he looks like a top 10 dynasty running back, catching a ton of passes, 54 catches on 65 targets, 360 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. He's a very good player with the ball in his hand there. And then running the ball, he handled 229 carries, just under 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns, 4.32 yards per carry. I'm happy with this. The Bengals, they ran the ball 3 carries less than they did the year before. Rushing output a little bit higher, 4.14 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns, more fumbles. But overall, there's signs of hope. For them to lose Joe Mixon and basically have the same stats as Joe Mixon feels pretty good. And you have a lot of growth here potential for Chase Brown now that he's been there and he's done that and he's entering the offseason where he can work on things. I think Chase Brown's one of the most exciting players to target from this Bengals offense in 2025. I think Zach Moss probably returns to the team, but he's not going to be a big factor. He's primarily a backup. And we saw even when Khalil Herbert joined the team, Herbert barely touched the ball. This was like 90% Chase Brown's backfield. And I think for us to be able to buy that in 2025, I mean, he's a 3rd round pick right now. And I think he's one of my favorite Bengal picks. And he's going to be a top 10 running back, maybe even a top 5 running back upside, honestly, if the touchdowns fall his way. I don't know if they're bringing Herbert back, but again, I think the way this team is leaning, it's going to be heavy Chase Brown with a veteran complement to him as his backup. At receiver, you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I don't really need to talk much about these guys. Jamar Chase was career season for Jamar Chase in the year that he needed it the most to get the contract that he's going to get eventually. And it hurts me because I've been in on Jamar Chase pretty much every year, and I missed the 1 year where he blows up and has the career year. So I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't have a lot of Jamar Chase. I had a lot of Jamar Chase in best ball, not so much in my home leagues, and I regret that. But anyways, Jamar Chase is beautiful, fantastic. I think he needs T. Higgins back. He needs someone to help ease the attention from the defenses, and Higgins, just his presence and his vertical game, complement Jamar Chase's utility knife role very, very well. 17 touchdowns, 10 for T. Higgins. Higgins 73 for 911 and a touchdown, or 10 touchdowns. I think his biggest issue is staying healthy. I think when you sign the T. Higgins, you want him to play 14, 15 games and know that he's going to have a soft tissue injury or a shoulder thing or something will pop up with him. So his durability is a concern. Not so concerned with Jamar Chase's durability. He's built like a running back. But Higgins, that's the one concern here that I think is going to probably limit some of his upside in his new contract deal coming up. But again, I expect him to return to Cincinnati, and that may change by the time March rolls around here. But for now, I think they're getting both these guys back. And then the wide receiver 3 position, Andre Yoshivas took it over, man. Jermaine Burton's kind of a knucklehead. Don't know if he's going to be with the team much. He's got a lot of legal things going on, and he's just kind of just a bad dude. So I think Yoshivas is fine as your number 3 receiver. He caught a lot of touchdowns. He was a fine guy when sometimes he'd make a big 3rd down catch. Sometimes he'd make the big red zone touchdown catch. He was just kind of always in the right spot when you needed him, but he's not a guy that can get open and just earn a lot of targets. But I think for the number 3 receiver spot, he's fine. If they do lose Higgins, I don't think Yoshivas can handle being a true number 2. I think he's going to struggle in that role. So if they lose T. Higgins, I'm going to want them to draft a Higgins-esque replacement, and we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, like Burton, Irwin, Pryor, Charlie Jones, like they need a number 4 receiver. If Chase, Higgins, and Yoshivas are the top 3, they need somebody else that they can whip out there in case injuries or, if someone misses time. So I think that's a priority for me. But fantastic seasons from all 3 of these guys this year. And then the tight end, man, they used 5 of them. Like Gesicki was the slot tight end, and he was fantastic in some games. 65 catches, 83 targets, 665 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Eric All, he's a guy that you want to add in your dynasty rosters. If you can still add players, I would say go for it. If not, draft him with one of your last picks, because I think he's the future starting tight end for the Bengals. Maybe not in 2025, maybe in 2026. Depends if Gesicki's staying around. I think Gesicki's probably back on another deal with the Bengals because he was their number 3 receiver pretty much for most of the year over Yoshivas. And with the potential, if Gesicki doesn't return, we're going to be all in on Eric All. Hudson and Sample are just kind of backup guys. They both caught the ball a lot. Like all these guys, 20, 19, and 20 receptions. That's a lot of targets to the tight end position. We're talking 155 targets and 129 catches 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like the Bengals use the tight end as well as anybody in that slot role. And we'll have to monitor this position because I don't think they need to draft one. They have Eric All. They like Hudson and Sample and even Cam Grandy down there. It's just a decision in free agency. Do they bring back Mike Gesicki or let him go get paid somewhere else? So as far as the 2024 review for the Bengals, awesome year. Only 9-8 though. So we need to figure out how to make that defense better, how to keep that offensive line better. They have all the weapons that they need on offense. They just have to, build some of the other areas of the team, specifically the defense. And probably that offensive line. So I like the Bengals. We should be interested in 2025. Okay. Trying to pick up the pace here. I don't want to talk a lot about the Browns. We're probably going to make this a 1-minute segment on the Browns. The Browns are junk. Stefanski's still holding on to the job. 3-14 though. Can't really blame them. Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I mean, I think the Watson contract is so damning that they probably shouldn't draft a quarterback this year. They should probably eat it one more year. There's no way to get out of that contract. So there's not really light at the end of the tunnel until 2026, 2027. So all the mock drafts have them taking, I think it's Abdul Carter, the edge rusher, probably not taking a quarterback this year. Probably another bridge year. I don't know who they're probably going to try and get Watson in there, but he's coming off of another torn Achilles. I don't know if we ever see Deshaun Watson play football again. So huge questions at the quarterback position, huge questions at the running back position. I don't know if Nick Chubb's back with this team. Jerome Ford's nice, but he's not a stud running back. He's more of a complimentary back, not a volume back. Really good receiving back, but he can't really carry the full workload here. So they need a starting running back, I think, and receiver like Jerry Jeudy. Nice season, 90 catches, 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's probably one of the lone bright spots on this team. And I did think Elijah Moore looked good as a number 2, number 3. I thought Cedric Tillman also looked fantastic for stretches. He reminded me of T. Higgins for a little bit when he was lighting it up, I think, in the middle of the year. They trade away Amari Cooper. So you're heading into your season with Jeudy and Tillman. Don't know if Moore comes back. They need to add more talent at receiver, more talent at running back. And then tight end, man, Njoku, when he's healthy, he was fantastic. I have no issues there. They like Jordan Akins as the backup. But the Browns just have so much work, man. I think even if they draft, I don't know if they're going to let Shedeur Sanders go to the Browns. But if that were to happen, or if it's Cam Ward, whatever, there's still a lot of work to be done with this team. And we basically just need to ride it out until Deshaun Watson's contract is done with. Let's take a look at those numbers. I mean, this thing is just awful, fully guaranteed. They could probably get out of it. Maybe. I still don't think they want to eat all that money in 2026. So we probably have 2 more years of riding this contract and we can get out in 2027. So we're on hold here with Cleveland. I hope Stefanski can stay because he's a good coach. He's a very good coach, but the Browns just have so many issues to rise above. Myles Garrett also requesting a trade. I just don't want to spend a lot of time on the Browns. I do think this is a team that's probably not going to have a lot of fantasy assets that we care about. You can maybe talk about Njoku and Jerry Jeudy, maybe Cedric Tillman, but a lot of that's going to depend on who's throwing the ball there. And I just don't know who's going to do that in 2025. So Browns fans, I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Browns. We'll move up and finish with the Steelers, who have their own issues, man. Obviously, Mike Tomlin's been there forever. Arthur Smith, decent in his first year with the Steelers. Steelers go 10-7 for the second straight year, and now we're looking at roughly the same amount of passing attempts, about 500 passing attempts, a little bit of an uptick in passing percentage, an increase in yards per attempt, more touchdowns passing, and then better. They ran the ball more with Arthur Smith, which led to more yards, but the yards per carry dipped a little bit, touchdowns, whatever. But I do expect a little bit of growth in year 2 of Arthur Smith. The Steelers have some questions here. Are they bringing back Najee Harris? Are they bringing back Jalen Warren? Are they trading George Pickens? I think this team has a lot of potential. Like, they also have to figure out who their quarterback is. Is Russell Wilson coming back? Is Justin Fields the guy? We don't know what they're doing at quarterback, at running back. They need help at wide receiver after George Pickens. Like, Pickens, I don't think he's a number 1 receiver. I think he's a number 2 receiver, and they need some guy that's going to catch 80, 90 balls and just get open and beat man-to-man coverage. I don't think Pickens is that. So we need talent infused here at receiver because Calvin Austin's he's a gadget guy. Van Jefferson's dust. Mike Williams is dust. a lot of dust here at the receiver position. The tight end room is great. Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington, they combined for 103 targets, 84 catches, 853 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Like, tight end room locked. But who are they going to pay to be their running back? Are they going to let both Najee and Jaylen Warren walk and figure it out? I don't know. I would like to see a full season of Jaylen Warren as the lead back here. I want to see Warren get 300 touches in a year and see how he handles that. But for me, this 2024 season, it's frustrating, man. Like, we're spinning the wheels here. The Steelers have a Super Bowl caliber defense, but they're not supplying the cupboards on offense enough for them to even be close. And that's just ultimately how it goes. That defense is good. It's going to keep them in pretty much every game. But, when they come across the Ravens, they're not going to beat the Ravens' firepower. They're not going to beat the Bengals' firepower. So, good first year under Arthur Smith. I think they have to build on that. I don't know if Russell Wilson's the answer. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is the answer. I don't know what the answer is at quarterback. They're not in a position to draft one. They could maybe bring in Sam Darnold and see how that goes, something like that. But I just think there's a lot of questions on the Steelers here. Jaylen Warren was good last year, just missed a good part of the early season just because he wasn't very healthy. And when he got back, he was playing better. Kind of overtook Najee at the end. Najee Harris he's not a great running back, guys. He's a plotter. Good receiving back, though. I think he can get a contract somewhere, and maybe he's the Raiders running back. I don't know. Someone will pay Najee Harris. I don't think the Steelers pay him, and we'll see where Warren goes. So I don't know, guys. The Steelers have a lot of things to think about. We need to get that number one receiver on the team that can lead the team in catches. We need to lock in that running back, and I think Justin Fields should be the quarterback. That's just me personally. They were playing well with him. And honestly, Fields had been throwing the ball well enough. I thought he showed some signs of improvement. So I would like to see Fields back for the Steelers. He's a guy that they can build around and I think begin to be an offensive threat. So there you have it. The AFC North, 22 minutes, not bad. So I picked it up a little bit here, guys. But anyways, check out the other videos I've made. I've been working on all the divisions here. I have the NFC North next, and I'm going to keep uploading these throughout the week here. So Super Bowl's over. We're fully focused on the offseason here, and I'm going to start getting to some dynasty content, some best ball content for you guys. But anyways, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace. Got me feeling icy.